Hello and welcome to NewsClick. Today we have Professor Aijaz Ahmad and we'll discuss the aftermath of the Gaza War. This was a shorter war than last time.
Right.
The question is, has anything changed with this war, or do you think the situation is as it was and it's a periodic war that Israel is going to wage on Gaza?
My sense is that it will depend on what happens in Egypt. If the Muslim Brotherhood really stabilizes itself in Egypt, we might be having the Oslo moment in Gaza. The deal, I believe, that was struck between Israel and Egypt was that Gaza will be pacified, that Hamas will take the responsibility not to use weapons of violence anymore, in practice abjure violence, and to openly declare that it will accept essentially what the Palestine Authority's official position is, which is an acceptance of the 1967 borders. Israel, I believe, is not interested in Gaza per se. It wants now to concentrate on the West Bank. It is going to establish a huge number of settlements. It wants to, whether or not it's able to is a different matter. And now get to that point where the Bantunisation of the West Bank actually is complete. It expects some kind of an intifada on the West Bank. So it wants to have a peace deal in Gaza. The deal is to hand it over to Hamas, make the split between Hamas and the Palestine Authority explicit, and concentrate on the West Bank. This is what I believe their optimal objective is.
And in this scenario, Gaza becomes Egypt's problem, which is also one of the
Well,
long-term...
it does not become a problem. The deal is made. Khalid Mashal is back in Gaza. This cannot happen without Israel's permission. This is a very deep deal. That's why I'm saying that if this gets stabilized, you have the Oslo moment in Gaza, in which there is an enormous amount of excitement. I remember Yasser Arafat returning to Palestine, to the land of Palestine, and so on. There's an enormous amount of excitement. Israel attacked. We fought back bravely as a result. Khalid Mashal is back, etc., etc. This is choreography.
Yeah, but look at it another way. Gaza is a small piece of land where we have 1.7 billion Palestinians. Now, economically, if Israel says this is now no violence, nothing, no right to return, no question of compensating for lands you have lost, and then economically this piece of land, which is really a very small area, becomes economically the headache for Egypt, and it's no longer Israel is not going to be a part of it.
It's not that much of a headache. It's not as if Egypt is going to pump in any enormous amount of economic aid. There can be multilateral aid of various sorts. Qatar will put in money, Saudi Arabia will put in money, just to stabilize the situation a bit. The situation in Gaza now is so bad that if they just even restore the level of food supplies and repair the sewerage system and this, that and the other, if they do relatively small amount of easing of the conditions of life, they can go on for 5-10 years at that level and all that. It's not an enormous amount of money, and Egypt can be the
conduit
for that kind of aid.
What you were saying is that Gaza and Hamas, if they reach this kind of Oslo equivalent with the Muslim Brotherhood, with the Hamas, with Egypt and Qatar as intermediaries, then they can really turn to the West Bank, where the larger land grab and really the land grab
is what Israelis would do. And in a very peculiar sense, look, Hamas has lived under an awful condition in Gaza. If they can be assured of their security, if they can deliver some economic goods to the people, then they can imagine that then they can expand in the West Bank. That is the next strategic target that as the Palestine Authority becomes illegitimate, Hamas expands there as well. So for them also, it works to have peace for a while, some economic stability and so on and so forth.
Do you think the Palestinian vote in the General Assembly will make the situation in West Bank worse, or do you think it actually makes Israel look even more illegitimate and therefore, in a larger sense, furthers the Palestinian cause?
Well, my sense actually is that that vote or Palestine Authority going there and applying for it and accepting it and presenting it as some kind of great victory is actually detrimental. It commits you to, what is the state that has got this status? Where is the territory? Where is the state? So it's a completely fictitious notion. Edward Said wrote a marvelous piece at the time when Yasser Arafat was going to declare a state there on this issue, precisely that it is really going for the symbolism when precisely at the time when you're conceding on the substantive issues. Abbas, Abu Mazen, the head of the Palestine Authority, says 1 week that I have no desire. I'm from the territories which are now Israel. I have no desire to go and live there. There's a side issue. Essentially conceding that the refugee
right to return no longer.
Right, 1 week. And next week he goes to the UN and so on. So my sense is that it is a way of propping up the Palestine Authority. It is a dying institution. It's propping them up. I don't think it's any great.
Look at it another way. Israel is beginning to look even more illegitimate. There is this vote, whatever it is. The international community votes on one side. The really 4 countries in the world, if we leave out the 5 protectorates of the United States, small little statelets in the Pacific Ocean, apart from really 4 countries, Israel, United States, Czech Republic and Canada, have voted for Israel, essentially.
Well, I don't understand this term, international community. I've never understood this term. The fact of the matter is that the General Assembly, Palestine has been getting this kind of vote all through. The Palestine issue has almost always got this kind of vote, with the exception of the one time when the issue of Zionism being racism was reversed in the General Assembly. Except on that one occasion, this is usually how the vote goes on anything having to do with Palestine, precisely because it has only a symbolic value.
But this time the European community, European Union states, which earlier used to abstain or vote on the other side with Israel, this time have largely abstained or voted on this side.
Yeah, they have a vested interest in giving Palestine Authority some television time.
So what you basically think that this is a way of propping up Palestine Authority, giving it some legitimacy, but essentially on the ground, the land grab continues and there is really no significant difference there. And you do not anticipate any change that would happen.
That's what my position is.
So unless there is some intifada over there, something breaks out, what the lesson of all this is that this kind of asking for a Palestine state is not going to work, and increasingly the 2-state solution is going to be completely unviable as we have Bantunisation, which is now going to be complete.
You see, there are 2 points I would add to it. One is that this whole process has led to a situation in which the world, including the left, has forgotten that there is a PLO. And Palestine Authority has somehow come to supersede that. And for Palestine Authority to go to the United Nations.
Officially to the PLO, which went?
Yes, officially to the PLO, but the PLO basically doesn't exist anymore. That's one. And if Mr. Abbas was really serious about any of this, he would say, now that the state has been recognized and they're making life impossible for us, and they're going to build this and that and the other, let them be responsible for administration in it, because Palestine Authority simply has been undermined by all the things that they have been doing. He's still committed to that so-called peace process.
He's not prepared to move the International Court of Justice?
But he will not do any of those things.
He will not do any of those things. So your sense is that the larger picture still remains unchanged?
It remains unchanged, and a lot will depend on what happens in the Arab world in general. My sense, I should add, having given that kind of a position, that the Palestinians in general, and this needs to be said about for Hamas, that they're in a very unfavorable situation where Syria is going. What is happening in the Arab world in general, within that, to keep the Palestine issue alive and at the center of Arab politics is an uphill task. And people do what they can under those circumstances. Hamas, on the one hand, is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, and therefore it has to accept what the larger Muslim Brotherhood decides. But also on the ground, just to gain a breathing space of some kind. So that much one should recognize, that these are very unfavorable conditions in which they have at least survived.
So the issue is really the larger politics of the region.
Larger politics of the region. What happens in Egypt is, I think, absolutely central.
Okay. Thank you very much. And as we observe what happens in West Asia, North Africa, the larger Arab world, we'll come back to the issue of Palestine as it unfolds. Thank you, Aijaz.
Thank you very much.